Yeah.
Okay, what I did, Vince, was I have a YouTube page. So I just made, it's called NASA Vincent Grillo. And so I put all of the videos that you sent me on a page. And the reason I did that is so I could easily pull that up and go through them in order. And then also so I can share it with the parents so they could watch and have conversations with the children about all of your content you shared with us. So let us know when you want to go to that, and I can quickly pull that up and show the kids those videos.
Okay, good. Okay, great. So the next slide is on 4, and this is just a brief history of NASA. And it was originally formed under the NACA, 1915, and you can imagine it was dealing with World War I type of aviation technology. So very old, Wright brothers. I don't know if class is familiar with Robert Goddard, who's one of the early experimenters at rockets.
Who?
And other technology that was rapidly being developed at that time. And then in 1958, Eisenhower signed the National Aeronautics and Space Act, which established NASA. And in 1998, the Launch Services Program was started, and that's where I work. And we are involved in the engineering, planning, study, and all parts related to securing a spacecraft for launch, and then in turn launching a particular spacecraft to Earth based science mission, or further on into an interplanetary mission. So that is our role in the NASA world.
So one of the questions that came up as we were fighting through the technical difficulties, and I want to commend the students for keeping their focus throughout that. I imagine, Vince, being able to control your emotions, your composure, your poise in times of trouble is really important for anyone, whether it's an astronaut or someone on the launch team. You have to be able to control those emotions when things aren't going well. So I think you've got some future NASA employees here. But one of the questions that came up was, how old do you have to be to work for NASA and or be an astronaut?
That's a great question. In order to be an astronaut, you have to have a certain amount of education. You have to have an engineering degree or a technical degree, which means you would have to at least have a college degree, if not a higher degree, a master's degree. You would also need to go through a vetting, what we refer to as a vetting process, but you would submit your application to Johnson Space Center for the astronaut program, and you would go through a series of interviews, and you ultimately, at the end, you would be picked for an astronaut class.
So doing the math, typical college graduate, 21, 22, probably some graduate work, a good timeline to try to enter right out of schooling to work with NASA. It'd be your late 20s, probably mid to late 20s. But I imagine you get a lot of people entering NASA after they've worked for maybe another company for a few years, that maybe you've got to come in with some experience as well.
Right.
Okay, great.
So,
well, I don't want to derail your presentation, but that was something that kind of related to where you were.
right. So, yes. you need industry experience or studies. Jet Propulsion Laboratory, they do a lot of cool things. They're out in Pasadena, California. They're operated by the California Institute of Technology, and they are owned by NASA. And they plan a lot of the interplanetary missions. We'll talk about a few. Johnson Space Center in Houston, they are concerned primarily with human spaceflight locations along the Northeast. And there's kind of a reason for that. Mostly NASA wanted to be located near wide open areas where it was easy to test and launch these very powerful, is slightly dim. And we can measure that, and we can determine the size of these planets, and we can also sample the light coming from them, and we can get an idea of what their atmosphere is like.
Okay, speak right into that call.
If you find a planet that can support Earth life, what do you intend to do with the planet?
Well, at this point, we can only catalog it. We can't travel there. Even sending a probe would take probably decades, if not hundreds of years, because we can only travel, even with light, only travel at the speed of light. So it would be very difficult to learn any more than we could learn from sensors we have at this point.
Thank you.
If you're interested in Jupiter, this is this is the largest, most massive planet in our solar system. You'll notice there are quite a few moons of Jupiter. And we talked about one, which is Europa. If I can, I have to wait for it to generate a view of Jupiter as it actually is oriented relative to the position I'm looking at it in. And you'll notice there, right now, NASA plans on a mission to Mars in the 2030s. And the first mission would simply establish a base. The interesting thing about Mars, and also the moon for that matter, is during the early formation, Mars had what are called lava tubes that form. And these are potentially could have frozen water ice. And we could potentially establish a habitat inside these caves, shielded from radiation on the surface, and have an ability to make our own water, and also have a energy supply. If we can split the water, we can make hydrogen and oxygen. Yeah, so it basically a colony on Mars would be possible.
So if Mars is really warm on the outside, how's it freezing on the inside?
If Mars is warm on the outside,
Yeah.
well, first of all, Mars is not warm on the outside. It is typically in the summertime at the equator. It may get up to about 20 to 25 degrees Fahrenheit, maybe 30 degrees. Normally it's like minus 40, minus 60. It would be like a very, very cold Arctic or Antarctic type of environment. So Mars is not a warm planet. The atmosphere, as I mentioned, is very thin. It's 1/10 of 1% of a pound per square inch atmosphere. So it's thin. Inside the planet, we suspect there is a core, but there is not a rotating core generating a magnetic field. So all the solar winds and radiation from the sun will bathe the surface. So you don't have a way of blocking that. So it'd be difficult to live on the surface without some way of shielding yourself.
Okay.
I don't know if I answered the question, but
Thank you. No, you did, and we need to do more research on Mars and what it's like there. I'm just picking popsicle sticks here because there are so many kids with so many questions. So you've certainly intrigued us today. I have a young man.
Lamar Fryer.
Hey, me too. We share that. We share that foundation. That was wild how we discovered that in talking. Mr. Grillo and I went to the same high school, boys and girls. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
Well, we just want to say thank you so much for your time and today, and maybe we can tune in for a second session. I know we've got a lot of notes and a lot of questions, so you may not hear them, but the students are clapping now.
Thank you very much.
And we look forward to getting those kits from the office when they arrive, and I will share the videos and the links with the students and their parents, and look for some follow-up emails from us. And this is a really great way to start our week.
Yeah.
Thanks again, Vince. And
You're welcome.
Be in touch soon.
Yeah, and I'll check on the kids again. I thought they were already sent, but I'll make sure they are sent.
Regardless of the kids, the knowledge and the conversation we had here is more than enough for us, rest assured. But we're going to continue our studies looking at Kennedy Space Center and the opportunities across the country, and follow all these very exciting missions to further our own knowledge. Thanks again, Vince.
You're welcome. Great to talk to everyone.
All right, take care. We'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.
You know, Mr. Serpico, there were four things that he said that really helped me connect to fifth graders in this classroom. One in this classroom can do what he went on to do. Okay? Sure, do you have to eventually gain a strong foundation in certain sciences? Absolutely. But you don't have to have that foundation now. You just have to have the interest, and you have to make the most of all your schoolwork in general, okay? And remember what most means. You have to mature, organize, stamina, and give yourself time to do your work. That's all you have to do. The only other characteristic you need to have, be someone who likes to play, tinker, be imaginative, and technology. And you have to have a balance. You can't just don't only be play. You have to find that balance, and I guarantee you that anyone in this classroom can go on and do things.